You're listening to Redesigning Reality with Dylan Charles and Jeff Anthony.
Okay, anyways, 3, 2, 1, here we go. Welcome to Redesigning Reality. I am Dylan Charles. With me, Jeff Anthony. What's up, Jeff?
Hey, Dylan. Here in Eugene, it's getting cold and rainy. It's definitely fall. It's feeling nice.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that mind fuck that is daylight savings. Oh. God, dude.
Great. That's a great way to open the show. Yeah, daylight savings is always fun. I just now got used to waking up early for school. So, after the summer, and then I'll have to get all out of wackadoo again, figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, Americans, just take it as part of life, and you don't really see it. But if you live somewhere where they don't have the whole time switching thing, like you and I did in Costa Rica, they don't do that there. And go for a year without screwing up the time, and you realize that it's nice.
It's really nice.
And to have time, just keep going.
But then it becomes trippy because you're like trying to keep up with your friends' schedules back in the States and your family, and you're like, wait, is it an hour different? Is it 2 hours different now? Are we on the same time? Yeah. So
yeah, but
I'm with you. I enjoyed the steady stream of time.
But in that scenario though, you're the sane one. You know that you're the sane one, and everybody's switching their clocks back and forth twice a year. The ones that are totally insane. So
yeah.
you have that certain that footing in righteousness. It feels good. It feels good.
I live by the equator and I don't change my time. I'm better than you. That's awesome.
So awesome. So is this podcast, Jeff. What are we going to talk about today, man?
Man, there's so many things to talk about, There's so many things going on. Always things swirling around us, and I think what we should talk about is how do you stay centered with all these things swirling around. I mean, what are we we're a good solid 2 months into hurricanes and more hurricanes and people going crazy and losing their minds, and then wildfires and burning whole suburbs down in California. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I made the mistake, and for the record, this is good policy for any human being. Don't ever wake up and ask yourself what could possibly go wrong next.
That's hilarious. Yeah, always, I think you got to keep yourself, like we talked about, in conversation before we started recording this, that you got to double down on your spirituality, your meditation, your shamanism, journeying, whatever it is you do. You got to double down on that and stay centered. And realize that, and be thankful and grateful for the position that you're in. And, of course, sympathize and do what you can for others that are struggling,
Yeah, that mindset's been paying off for me lately, and I really don't want to get into recapping current events, but if anybody here is coasting along on planet Earth, stuck on this ball, this projectile hurtling through space, I'm guessing they know what's going on. I was thinking, though, man, what's kind of interesting is that we have such a Western Hemisphere, centric perspective on the world, Stuff happens all the time, all over the place, and it just feels like we're getting hammered right now where we're at. So, but it goes.
Like you said, everybody's getting hammered everywhere. We're not in Costa Rica anymore, and they're freaking underwater right now. And a bridge I used to drive over every week is completely gone, and the restaurant that was next to it is gone. Went down the river. The land it was on fell into the river, and there's devastation everywhere if you choose to focus on it. But the thing I was going to say, the awesome thing, dude, is having so many ties there after a decade of living there and seeing all of these people digging the mud out and putting the roof back up. The side of their house fell over, but the roof metal is still straight. So they just got metal instead of wood and propped it back up and, got it back up in the air, and dug themselves out. And I love that survivalist mentality that people have in Costa Rica,
The word that comes to mind to me, which actually I've been using a lot this week just with everything I'm doing, is resilience.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there's some really really choice opportunities to fall down the rabbit hole of confusion, depression, overwhelmed. Like I said, I woke up the other day and I was like, all right, well, it's been one crazy week after another. What else could it be? And then check the news as I do. And, it's like these wildfires in Napa, California surrounding my family,
Yeah, I was thinking about your mom and your brother out there.
They're there.
Yeah, I know. I have a couple friends there too. One of them is in Santa Rosa where the fires are right. I mean, he's out of his house hoping it doesn't burn down.
Yeah.
And yeah. It's really neat, I think, in a way, after living in Costa Rica as long as you and I did, how you have friends all over the country and all over the world now, because it's such an international community there. And it's really interesting, because every time there's been something going on, I have a lot of friends in Florida that used to live in Costa Rica. So the hurricane thing, and my friends are like, oh my gosh. And then now the fire thing. And then we just went through the fires here too. Like, I never realized that. I never lived in the foresty West Coast area where they have all these wildfires. It's kind of eerie, apocalyptic.
Yeah, I mean, a friend of mine's house just a few weeks ago, his house was burned down, a random electrical problem. House gone, all your stuff toast. Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like, what if there was some kind of cosmic calculator that could tally up all of the actual costs of all the materials and whatnot that have been just trashed in the last really month and a half or so? It's got to be pretty astronomical. I mean, like losing.
Well, and that goes right back though to what you were saying about how resilient human beings are, and resourceful, and people just, I mean, what are you going to do? You can lay down and die or cry and have a demolished home, or you can rebuild and, put your best foot forward and be a good example for your kids and your family and yourself, and I love the resiliency in people. I hate seeing the devastation, but I love seeing all the awesome stories of people helping out their neighbor and, just physically seeing people rebuilding things is really amazing, Yeah,
I find it pretty remarkable that people seem to come together, in tragedy, disaster, all this, much more so. They find it much more easy to come together in adverse circumstances than they do in, just everyday life.
Yeah, and all the
what's up
all
with
the
that?
ridiculous, all this ridiculousness that's in the. Well, people start realizing that we're all in the human race, and the racism, becomes irrelevant and unimportant because your neighbor or your friend or a complete stranger is drowning or buried under mud or, lost their house in a fire.
I think there's something more to it. I think there's some hardwiring in human beings. Perhaps
I think so, but I think it's also that you can it's relatable. You can put yourself there, especially when they're your neighbors, and you're kind of going through it together.
Yeah, but I just think like the way that if you think about what it was like surviving on planet Earth before we had all this infrastructure and civilized society and all this kind of stuff. I mean, we really were communities that had to, deal with, man versus nature, all this kind of these classic struggles. And so it's sort of hardwired into our DNA, into our existence to come together and overcome strife and struggle and all this. And so I feel like possibly like people, that might be like their happiest moments is when something really terrible happens and they get to rise to the occasion and support their communities. I mean, if you look, I thought it remarkable, like the stuff going on in Houston with the flooding, like watching all those people like crank out their boats, man, jump in, be damned, anything is going to get in my way. I'm going to go help people, anybody. And they're just looking for somebody to help out. Doesn't matter who, just I want to help somebody. I have this sort of a primal urge to get in there and help a human being out. It's pretty fascinating, And so like we live in this real sanitized, real, like there's no real challenges to life as it is without these disasters, without these negative events coming, And so I think that sort of like that lack of challenges to that aspect of our spirit really, can put us out of balance. It could create depression. Like it can create, what do you call that? I guess just imbalances in our character, to where that side of our human nature never gets an opportunity for expression. And so, we end up, our weight gets out of control, or we eat too much, or we do too much, or we fall into self-destruction and stuff. But
Right.
when
It's almost
things happen like this, and we get to rise to that occasion, I mean, everything's pumping, the whole body's firing, the brain, the adrenaline, everything's going. You're just looking, the compassion gets turned on, the empathy's there, you can feel it. I mean, you really feel alive in these situations, and so.
right. It's almost like people create personal crisis when they're not dealing with crisis. And I know you're speaking generally, but
That's a good point. Yeah.
I think what you were touching on was, it's not that they feel good when there's something bad happen. It's that it's rewarding. It's very rewarding to help other people, and it's also very satisfying, as a human being to be needed.
Yeah.
When people need you, and you can be of service just by having a body and hands that you can grab things and pull people out of the water with. It's very rewarding to help other people, and I agree with you. It's like I tell people all the time, you don't do the big growth in the easy times. When you're coasting along and everything's great, that's not spiritual growth. That's not physical growth. You lift weights to get stronger. It's hard. You change your diet to lose weight. It's a struggle. And but it's also, those are the most rewarding things. And we often forget that, you have to squeeze the oranges to get orange juice. You know what I mean?
I know that especially within the last month, it's got to be tied into the events that are going on. Of course, it's all tied. Everything's all connected. But I've been personally compelled to, like you said, double down on my spiritual practices and like really pay attention to my center and where I'm at and what I'm focused on, what all I'm allowing into my mind, how I'm processing it all, where gratitude fits into that picture, where I'm fortunate, I haven't lost my house in a hurricane or, lost somebody I know in a mass shooting or anything. I mean, it's I'm fortunate. And so really, in order to not succumb to the stress of everything that's going on, even the stress of just watching as a bystander, somebody who can't actually physically go in and get that release and that have that impact of actually helping somebody out, but the stress of watching it all and feeling it all empathically, man, it's got to be, you got to deal with that. What do you do? What do you do to keep yourself sane in this increasingly insane world, my friend?
Well, that's a great question, and I have of course, a retort to that. I pay it forward. Some of the other day at a meeting was asking everybody in the room what they think patriotism is and what does patriotism mean to them. And I thought that, to me, patriotism in the United States means, as an American, helping other people and being kind in the world when you go out there. Like when I lived in Costa Rica, people don't talk about that I was an American. They talk about that I was an open, honest, and loving dude, and that I included people and I brought people into my life. And one of the things I'm doing right now is I was just at a meeting, a speakers meeting called Toastmasters, and I found out that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I never knew that. And so I happened to be given a speech that night, and the director of a men's organization here heard my speech and then asked me if I would come and speak at this domestic violence summit conference thing. And I totally agreed. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to take my experiences of growing up rough and having difficult situations and use my story to help others. So, and that's ways that you can deal with that anxiety, and you can deal with that, pain that you're not able to go out there and help these communities in the hurricane-stricken areas or, wildfire areas. But you can go tame another wildfire right in your own area, which is like, obviously domestic violence and all that kind of thing is a problem in our world. So do what you can in whatever your small way is, and that's what I'm going to do coming up here in a week or so.
Well, you're going to give like a speech?
Yeah, it's like a 15-20 minute presentation, and I'll be talking about, my home life growing up. And not only that, I don't want to dwell on the things that have happened to me. I'm trying to help people get out of the victim role and the victim mentality and give them actionable steps that they can use to turn their life around, to do a lot of the things that I have done. I always like to speak from experiential experiential experience. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't like to spit theory at people of something I read or, something that worked for somebody else. I try to share my experiences and use my story. And it's a way I try to encourage people all the time with that. Like, you think these horrible things have happened to you or that you've done horrible things to other people, but you can use that experience as a tool to train others and help others through similar situations that they're in. Your story is my story is your story. It's so true. We're all linked together,
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I find myself diving more deeply into the practices that have helped me to overcome all kinds of things like depression, anxiety, ADD, and all that kind of stuff. One of those for me is martial arts. Been really getting into that again lately, and I find that when you have a physical practice or something like that you can put yourself into, the I don't know, the value, the lessons, the experience of it really like translates, kind of pushes out into your life. Another thing I've been doing a lot daily now, or like getting back into after kind of taking some time off from it, is meditation. And nothing complicated, nothing. Doesn't have to be something serious, like transcendental meditation or anything. Just simple closing your eyes and focusing on what's happening in your brain, allowing the things to come up in your mind and see what's all going on in your mind. And I think you learn a lot that way.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that, dude, because I think one of the big misconceptions that people have with meditation is that they're trying to quiet their mind. And I've always looked at meditation as observing the mind, like, what am I thinking about? And if I'm thinking, oh man, I really need to shave when I'm trying to meditate, then maybe later that day I'll go shave. But I let that thought arise and then, push it off to the side and see what the next thing is that's going to come up. And if you do get to that silence, if you can get to that calming of the mind, which I think is also what you're talking about with the martial arts. It's not that your mind's not working and it's that your mind is focused, on something physical and on your opponent and all these things. And so you let go of did I pay my electric bill? And, how are my kids doing at school today? And all those little things go away when you have that physical practice. And it's really cool because the meditation is like, it's like Kung Fu for the mind, it's really cool.
Yeah, I find that I've always found that for meditation for me, like if I try to quiet the mind, if like that's what my goal is, and first off I end up getting frustrated, but I feel like I'm pushing string, right? Have you ever like lay down a piece of string, pushed it along, it doesn't go anywhere.
Right. It's a little kink here and a little kink there.
Right. It just gets more confusing as you it's not something that really helps. So I like to just observe and see what's going on. And like the moments of those moments of stillness, they come when they come, and when they come, sometimes they're extraordinary, but I think it's such a goal driven. I mean, like look at how society is today. I mean, people are under so much more pressure than ever before to perform from the time they get up to the time they go to bed. I mean, it's no longer possible. I mean, it has in part to do with economics, in part to do with the amount of the level of connectedness we are. The expectations of other people are greater than ever before. The corporate culture, like you go to work and it's like the demands of all of this are so much greater than I think the human race has ever experienced before. And so like this impetus to just perform all the time. So I don't think that it's possible to really like stay healthy, stay de-stressed and whatnot without giving your mind, just like a break, right? And it doesn't even really have to be a break, but without giving your mind the attention that it deserves as well,
For sure. I mean, people feed their bellies, right? Like they're always thinking about what they're going to eat next, but they're not thinking about what they're going to consume mentally. What information, what practice, what ideas are you putting in your mind? It's super important,
It's important, but it's really like I find, especially with my work, as a blogger, right? Like I'm into information all day, every day, right? So I see it all, I consume it all, and I find that that's just the fact of life now. The consumption of information is out of control, but it's really maybe not what the solution isn't to take in less. The solution is to like process it in better ways, right? So take martial arts, for example. Like lately I've been into jiu-jitsu, right? So that's, when you're rolling, which is, like wrestling with somebody, when you're in that space and time with that person, like there is, your mind gets a break from everything else. There's nothing else. Like if you don't even have to choose to focus on nothing else, because what's happening, the situation you've thrown yourself into is so intense, is so real, is so visceral that you have to be like the flow consciousness automatically turns itself on, and that really what it is, like meditation, martial art. People get this way through playing an instrument. People get this feeling through, practicing artwork. Some can do it, going for a walk, whatever it is. But that flow consciousness, that state of singular awareness, where like whatever's not in front of you gets just sort of pushed so far out into the peripheral of your mind that it doesn't exist for a short time. Very valuable state of mind.
What you're doing gets amplified. That's what I think is the coolest thing about. I feel like that when I'm writing, and I know you do a lot of writing too. So whenever I'm writing or preparing a speech or something like that, it gets super amplified, and it's almost like the ideas are flowing from somewhere else. And, when I wrote my book, I remember I'd go back and read it and be like, who wrote this? I should take some notes on the stuff I wrote and follow my own advice. This is pretty awesome stuff. You know what I mean? It's really neat where your mind can go, especially through repeated practice, which I think is what we're talking about with the doubling down on your meditation or your writing or your kung fu or your jiu-jitsu, whatever it is, through these difficult times, that are very distracting.
Yeah, I mean, the ultimate goal really is to stay in the awareness that the world is, I don't know, for lack of better words, the world's fucked up, right? There's fucked up things that are happening. There's fucked up things that are going on. It's not going to stop. In fact, if you look at how things are, they're just, we're just kind of, things are speeding up, right? We're pushing ever faster towards singularity. I mean, things are really cooking, And so in that, to stay in the awareness that you can't change what's going on. You can't change other people. You can't jump out there and make all these other people do what you want them to do. That just leads to frustration. So the awareness is that you have to, to not contribute to all that chaos in the world. And to do that, you really have to be, I guess taking care of yourself really is what comes to mind. Self-care, right? Making sure that you're good. You're good up here. You're good in your heart. Your body's good. You're not taking in crap and toxins, and you're eating well. You're taking care of yourself. And I think that's really like the foundation of what this podcast is about and what it's going to become about. What it's going to turn into is really just diving into this like awareness of how to reshape your reality by doing the basic and sometimes awesome things that that a person can do in order to shift their consciousness into a space where, first of all, they're taking care of themselves, right? They are not contributing to the problems and chaos in the world, because inside within them they're nice and smooth and calm and peaceful and whatever they need to be, strong, healthy boundaries, all that stuff. But then able to actually pull off positive action in the world because they're coming from a place of calm, right? Coming from a place of healthiness, So,
and if that sounds challenging, like I've dealt with a lot of people that I try to give them that advice, and they're like, yeah, but that's hard, and I don't want to have to change the way I eat, and I don't like doing exercise, and I'm happy with, but yet they're visiting you and counseling with you because they're not happy. And then it always becomes a point where I have to ask them, what game are we playing here? You're just not ready for change. Things haven't become difficult enough or chaotic enough in your life to want to turn the corner yet. And so when you're ready, it's really funny. When you're ready, changing your diet doesn't seem hard. Yes, it's work, but it's something that you're willing and ready to do. Meditation, you find the time to do it because it's important to you, and you enjoy the way you feel afterwards. And on it goes. The exercise, yeah, you're going to be sore, but that's letting you know that it's working, And I think so many people are content. I don't think, content's not the right word. They're, they become stagnant because they're stuck is really what it is, and they're not content with their lives. They're just lackadaisical, and letting things happen to them, and instead of being the driver, and I think it's what we're talking about, is if you're ready for that change, if you're ready to clean up because out of chaos comes order. If you're ready to get it all in order, all these things seem like something that you are excited to do and that are excitable to you. And it's amazing the difference it makes in your life and how quickly the people around you notice, the differences, and they want to emulate what you're doing. It's really neat. It's like for lack of a better analogy, it's like a wildfire. It catches on and then it catches to the next person and the next person. Then you're, have this sphere of influence that you don't realize that you're affecting people's lives in a positive way instead of spilling over that negativity like you were talking about earlier.
I see, and I've worked a little bit with addicts, but I see addiction as being, like the human tendency towards addiction of all kinds, heroin,
right.
whatever, foods,
food,
mindset, mood,
TV,
people, sex, whatever it is, like this understanding that as human beings, our brain, wires and rewires itself according to the information, the experiences we give it. So it's really easy for people to become addicted to any state of mind, to any pattern of behavior, and you couple that with like just the programs and the training that people have as they grow up, without really, it's not really a huge focus on understanding how to adjust habits and create positive mental programs and this sort of thing, and so I think addiction is something that really just tears up the world, And like I said, I've worked with drug addicts in a capacity working with shamanic medicines, and it's powerful to see how the experience of like psychedelic medicines can interrupt addiction, but on a more like simplistic, like practical level, like if let's say somebody's addicted to junk food and eating crap food and fast food and this and that, like you just it's a habitual addiction. You just get it, right? You're just into it, right? But breaking that cycle, once that cycle is broken, the switch can quickly flip, and you can become, just as easily addicted to healthy foods and healthy drinks and drinking water, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And just as easily hooked on feeling good, and I love to see people. I love to see it when people make those positive changes in their lives and like turn off those old programs, rewrite those patterns, and move into healthier, more beneficial ways of thinking, ways of being, ways of taking care of themselves. So I think like in a time right now where there's so much crazy stuff going on, I'm finding personally I'm having to be really cautious of what I'm putting into my body because I don't drink a lot of alcohol, but when I do, I find that at a time like this, it's so easy. Like just a little bit of alcohol acts as such a deep escape for me, to escape from, whatever, the cortisol or whatever I'm experiencing, explosion that I'm experiencing from watching stressful news or whatever, and like, but those things, those patterns in a person can shift so quickly, it's a pendulum. They could swing so hard in one direction so quickly,
Right. And it's funny too, because people think, I'll have a few drinks and it'll help me relax. And then if you study the science of it, alcohol creates more cortisol, which is the stress hormone that we were talking about. And so, your cortisol is already up and amped up because you're stressed out about your job or your bills or the news and the fire and the hurricane. And then you think, I'm going to chill out with this glass of wine, and then that becomes a catalyst for a bottle of wine, and then then you're the next day you're doing it again. And you said that thing earlier, what was it, that drinking alcohol is borrowing happiness from tomorrow?
Yeah, I heard that somewhere recently.
It's such a great line, man, because it's so true. At the time it feels good and you think it's helping, and then you wake up the next day and you're like, oh man, I feel like ashish, and I wish I wouldn't have done. Now,
I was
now
gonna
I've
bring
got
up cannabis, but I guess you beat me to it.
well, then that's the catalyst, right? Because then you feel all shitty and you're like hungover and you're like, you know what I need right now? I need to smoke a big fat bowl of marijuana because that's going to make me feel better. And then that, trickles into it's now afternoon and you're hungry and you got to cook something and your day is lost. You're not getting any writing done that day. And it over time, I mean, yes, understandable. People do these things and it's fine. I'm not judging at all. But over time, you can get depressed about repeated actions and lack of production, And so anyway, it's just all these things become catalysts that fall into the next thing. And I like juicing. I know you like juicing. And I've had some funny experiences where I'm not like I've done these 28-day juice cleanses where that's all I'm doing. And then, people are at my house and they're drinking or having food and, they're like, what are you doing, man? You just drink this green juice. That looks nasty. And then you let them try it and they're like, oh, it's actually not bad. And then the next thing you know, they're got a juicer and they're juicing too, right? Because they see the change in your physical body and your skin and the way you look. And then all of a sudden you have these people that thought you were crazy that are like, oh man, do you know anywhere there's a juice bar where I could get this green juice? I got to have it now. It's really cool. It's like the thing you were talking about. I just wanted to touch on that because earlier you were saying how your trends can vacillate. You can go from being addicted to this junk food to all of a sudden, I'm not a hardcore juicer. I'm not got to have my green juice every day. I do it when I feel like I need it. But I've had people that I've converted to like hardcore juicers, and it's really cool to watch them go from, hey, I'll just eat or drink anything to I really need this green juice right now. It's kind of cool.
That is probably the first time I've ever heard the term hardcore juicer. I like it though. It's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about whatever it is that people can get addicted to, whatever it is that people do to escape. I mean, I'm finding right now that like there's certain times when things are flowing in a certain direction where you need to clear out your consciousness, right? You need to make sure that your mind is functioning clear, smoothly, not a bunch of crap in there bouncing around because there's things happening that you need to process in the best way possible. People need you to be positive. People need you to be effective and functional, Cannabis is an interesting one because I've noticed this about cannabis. It seems like, if anybody's familiar with, probably everybody's familiar with Graham Hancock, I would think, he, a few years ago, he put up this post on Facebook about how he was quitting cannabis. He called it the green bitch, I think is what he called it, and he said that he had smoked every day, like the strongest possible cannabis you could get, every day for like 30 years or something insane like that, and written all his best books while he was high as balls, yeah. But he finally through the use of ayahuasca, he finally was able to realize that there is a downside of it, and had to come to an agreement with that very strong medicine, cannabis, that like, hey, you need to release me from your mighty grip. And so people don't really look at cannabis as something that's addictive. People might think heroin or cocaine or even alcohol or prescription pills or whatever. But recently I saw another artist, another like visionary artist, post on Facebook about how he was like he had written down these like 9 reasons why he wants to quit, and I think his name is Chris Dyer, yeah. It was just like practical things like I'm spending $50 a week, getting high, $200 to $250 a month. That's a lot of money for me. I notice that when I'm high, I don't look healthy. I don't look awake. I don't look alert. I notice that my willingness to socialize and, be around people, definitely diminishes. But I've been such a heavy cannabis user for so long that I need help from my higher self. I'm asking for help from my higher self, from my angels, to help me, release me from this attachment, this bond. And same thing that happened with him, that happened with Graham Hancock, that happened when I wrote an article about the negative aspects of cannabis many years ago. And as a disclaimer, cannabis should be legal. It's not something it's a plant. Don't put people in prison for it. But We're just talking about a relationship with it.
Right. And there's a lot of positive. I mean, there's so many positive things that cannabis does with the CBD
know, hold on. I want to
yeah,
finish what I'm saying.
Ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
My point is that like, in all of these cases, like an admission that when a person publicly admits or acknowledges that cannabis isn't serving them well, maybe it has served them well in the past, like people come out of the woodworks to give them hell, right? Like, so the type of addiction that cannabis is totally different than other medicines. And I'm sure if anybody listens to this podcast, they're going to be like, wait a minute, this guy's dogging cannabis. They'll say things like, well, it may not work for you, but it's fucking awesome for me. Like, well, it doesn't affect everybody the same way. And it's clear that you're one of the cases where it affects poorly. And I'm sorry that's you, but really it's awesome. And you shouldn't say anything bad about it, And so, I don't know, different type of addiction for sure. It's a psychological addiction. It actually, to me, feels like a spiritual addiction, cannabis,
Yeah, and I don't think you're saying anything negative about it. You're just making observations, and I have no problem with cannabis. I've used it a lot in my life, and there's been long periods of time where I don't use it, because I can see exactly what you're talking about. Yes, I could smoke weed today and not smoke it tomorrow, and I'm not going to have a adverse physical reaction, but it does play mind games with you, and it does become anything that you do becomes habitual, including getting up at the same time, man. My alarm never goes off, I set it every day because I'm a little rat, and I'm setting my alarm, but it never goes off. My wife is always like, how are you always just awake? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm trained to wake up, I guess my time in the military, I wasn't always like that when I was a really young guy, but through your experiences, things become habitual, and the longer you do anything, the harder it is to let go of, especially if it's something that you enjoy, and I've enjoyed cannabis, but I've also been in situations where I wasn't enjoying it anymore, and it was like, yeah, exactly what you're talking about. Should I be spending this money? Why am I thinking about that I'm almost out of cannabis and I really want to get more, and then now here I am. I live in a place where it's literally falling off of trees, ha ha ha. But you know what I mean? There's dispensaries on every corner in Oregon, all over the place, and you have to be 21 or up to go in there. And I can tell you that as a younger guy, I would have thought, "Oh, that's stupid, dude. What's that about?" But I get it. There's certain places in your life where if you fall into that habit at a young age, it could be detrimental to your development, and I had some friends in Costa Rica. Their son was getting all into smoking weed all the time, and they knew I smoked weed all the time, and they were like, can you talk to him? And he came over and he was like, I know you're not going to tell me not to smoke weed because you smoke weed. And I was like, well, look, man, do you own a home? Do you own a car? Do you have a high school diploma or a college diploma? Are you married? Do you have children? Do you have an income? Like everything you see here, I own this home. I own those cars. That's my college degree on the wall. I have an income. I have a wife. I have a family, and I provide for them. So I'm in the position where if I want to choose to smoke marijuana, I can, because I've accomplished things in my life. What have you done? And have you earned the right? And are you responsible enough to do this, or is it affecting you finishing high school? And the truth came out that it was affecting him finishing high school. And I told him, finish your school, get your education, go to college, figure a few things out. If you want to smoke weed down the road, smoke it up. I have no problem with that, but don't lie to yourself, and tell yourself that this isn't affecting your life. It is,
Yeah, people,
and that's the thing, I think. Go ahead.
With all kinds of substances, addictions, habits, people tend to lie to themselves, and it's just funny because I just noticed the irony of us having this conversation while I'm wearing a Bob Marley t-shirt.
Bob Marley shirt, yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
But I love cannabis, and it's one of those things. I love reggae music, man. It's probably one of my favorite things in the world.
Me too.
And but I also love being like present and aware in myself now, and it's not something that that's really easy for a lot of people, is to feel like they're in alignment with themselves, feel like they're in alignment and on their path and doing what they need to be doing. We were talking about staying centered in times like this where there's so much things coming at you, hitting us this way and that way. And, people maybe take detours into alcohol or smoking weed or whatever it is. And to counter that, being mindful of whether it's your diet or, diving into martial arts or meditation or whatever. One thing that I just was reminding myself of was that I find it so very helpful in times like this, whenever there seem to be like challenges, to seek guidance, right? To seek guidance from people, to seek guidance from sources, whether it's philosophy, wisdom. I have books. I have a couple of few reliable, go-to sources, and like to be clear of consciousness makes it more possible. It gives you more ability to feel, and gives you more freedom to react to your intuition, to actually gather your intuition. When you numb your intuition down by detours with getting lost in the news, or fucking just living in a shitty way or whatever, when
distractions in general,
or substances or whatever it is, like the first thing that really seems to go is like the connection with your intuition, right? And so especially at a time like this, where do you get guidance from? Where do you get guidance from, Jeff?
Well, it's funny because I think what you're talking about is calibrating your personal guidance system, right?
It's in technical terms, perhaps. I never looked at it that way. I was looking at it more of just sort of on an organic thing, right? I'm feeling a certain way. I'm feeling stress. Like, you can feel stress. You can feel when your heart is closing. You can feel when an experience is bringing about contraction rather than expansion in your life. And when you feel that contraction coming, and if you have the presence and clarity of mind to recognize that, then move into action, move into your practices, move into finding, move into seeking guidance, from
right.
sources
and I
that
would
work
say
for you.
that you never know what that's going to be and where it's going to come from. I can't speak to what someone else's guidance should be or is, right? Because it can be literally anything. It can be
True.
A movie. I mean, there's been awesome movies that speak to me,
Right.
and it sounds cliche to say, but Star Wars has a great message in it, and it's really interesting how these pop culture things can become our guide. Songs, I mean, there's all kinds of songs out there by all kinds of people, reggae, rap, hip hop, rock, that are guidance systems for people that help them to push through difficult situations and times of struggle, and for other people it's a poem or it's a book. Or, man, I remember when I was writing my book, it was for me a playlist of YouTube videos that I had that I would listen to every day that were basically modern day philosophers, Terence McKenna, people of that, nature, that I would listen to every day so that I could get my mind right and get and kind of tweak my guidance system, so that I could be kind of honed in and focused on what was the message that I'm trying to put into the world. And you're absolutely right. Smoking weed and drinking alcohol and all those things, they're great. They're fun. There's nothing wrong with it in moderation. And if you can handle your business, but it will interfere with your abilities and your intuition. I'm very intuitive, and it's not that it clouds things, it's that you just don't give a shit. It's like, oh, I'm fucking hungry and I want a corn dog, or whatever. I'll eat some McDonald's right now. I'm just starving, and so then people start making these poor decisions, and they've worked so hard to, control their diet and get their emotions and their guidance system all in line. And then you blow it apart because of other vices that you choose to indulge in, and then all of a sudden you get to wake up tomorrow and feel bad about it and decide whether you're going to repeat it again, And so I wouldn't ever pretend to know what it is for anyone else. For myself, it's shamanism, listening to that drum It's much like meditation, but you put your headphones on, the ones I'm wearing right now, and you just listen to this consistent drum beat, and all of a sudden your mind lets go of all these things, and you go to all these different places. You have to set your intention of where you want to go, and maybe even a question that you may have. But it's really amazing how spirit always shows up. Your guides always show up, and they tell you things or show you things and give you lessons that you can take back with you to this reality, because I would call that other than ordinary reality when you're journeying or meditating. And you can use those lessons, and then you can get yourself back on track. And you just have to take the time to double down on the practice. When things are swirling and there's wildfires and there's wild people and there's freaking hurricanes or whatever it is, man, your car payment's due and you don't know if you have the money. All these things are distractions, but if you go on that journey, man, you might find out where the money is. Literally, you could have a great idea. Something could pop into your mind. Somebody could call you out of the blue right after you. It's really funny how right after you get back in touch with yourself spiritually, people call you and say, "Hey, man, I'm sorry, man. I think like a couple of years ago I borrowed $200 from you, and I wanted to give that to you. It's a good time for me."
I was gonna say something about that. I find that in times like this, when things seem uncertain and things start to kind of unravel and shit's not going the way it's supposed to go, like first thing I do is clear out my consciousness, make sure that I'm paying attention to what's going into the body, the mind, and the spirit, right? And what always happens, man, what always happens for me is the people that I love most, the friends and the people that I know, the amazing healers and just good people like yourself, they show up with phone calls, with emails. Hey, give me a call, this and that. People you may not have talked to in a year or so, 2 years, whatever, will call. And then it'll just so happen coincidentally that they'll say something that you really needed to hear, and you had no idea how badly you needed to hear this, and that's been happening a whole lot with me lately, man. I mean, like one person after another, like experiences and contacts are coming into me, and every time I open up a conversation with these people, man, I'm just like, oh, there's another piece of the puzzle. There's another light that illuminates the path that I'm supposed to be on, right? I'm not supposed to be over here, lost in the woods. I'm supposed to be on this path. I'm on a path. I'm doing a certain thing. I'm going a certain direction. How do I get and find on that path? And people say things.
Right. And, I like using metaphor, Dylan, and I call it like, you're casting your energy. You're casting your energy line out there like fishing, like you're a fisherman, and what do you want to reel in, and when you cast your line out there for something positive to catch and hook up on something positive, you're going to hook it up. You don't know, it's a dark abyss. It may be nighttime and you're trolling your line and you don't know what you're going to get. But if your intention is positive and you're fishing for positivity and positive energy, you're going to hook up, and if you can set that hook and reel it in, there's going to be something amazing. So people are going to start showing up. Opportunities are going to come your way. It's just like I did with the speaking engagement the other day. I felt compelled to give this speech. I gave it, and then that's led to another engagement, and then now that's leading to other engagements, and it's all positive. It's because I'm putting my energy line out there to hook up with positive things, and it can work in reverse, man. I mean, you could throw your line out there, or you could throw a whole net full of I'm going to catch some shit, man, and you're going to catch some shit, bro. You're not going to want to eat it, but a lot of people do.
Here's another metaphor I'll throw out at you. It's like a garden, right? You're the gardener, right? Your task is to cultivate this garden. What's growing in your garden? Weeds and shit and poison ivy, and is it full of bugs and grub worms and stuff, man? Like what's the soil quality like? And really like personal development, and you could that's analogous with spiritual development in a lot of ways, but it's about cultivation. And what that means is, like, to me, what that really means is that, like, it doesn't happen automatically. No, you have to get up. You have to intentionally go, okay, I want to see better results from my garden. I want a full harvest this year, right? you have to put on your overalls and your freaking boots, and you have to go get your tools set up, and you have to actually get your ass outside when it's hot or whatever the weather's doing.
Got to bust out that Miracle Grow.
You got to bust out the Miracle Grow, you know, you got to weed out the weeds, you got to dig out the grub worms, you got to go get, you know, manure or whatever it is you got to pour into the soil and mix it together. In other words, like, it's work, and it doesn't just happen by itself, you know? Like,
right.
I get a lot of value from like Taoist philosophy, yoga philosophy. I've really been getting a lot of guidance these days from the I Ching, you know, the ancient book of the ancient Chinese book of wisdom, the book of changes and the unchanging truth. You know, like one of the core messages in all of this stuff is that you have to you basically, like, you need to it's cultivation, really. That's the simplest way to put it, is that, like, you're not going to see results if you visit this stuff once, right? But whoa, lo and behold, if you pay attention, if you go back again and again and again, and if you make this a daily part of your life, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, if you spend 20 minutes in your garden every day, holy crap, like, your harvest is going to blow your mind. Like, you have without actually putting the work in, you have no idea how great the harvest will be. But when you do, it's incredible how the universe provides results for you know, this type of self-cultivation, you know.
Right. And I like the word self-cultivation and the analysis, you know, of garden. It's great because it's true. I mean, you feed the garden feeds you, you know, and people don't think about that with their body. You know, you feed your mind feeds you back, you know, and that's why it's so important. You know, are you pulling the weeds out? You know, are you giving it good food? In other words, where's your self-talk? You know, what are the things that you say to yourself? Because if you'll say these negative things to you, you're going to say them to your friends, or your family, and all the people around you. And then soon you become the weed, you become the poison, you know, and you're not feeding or nurturing anyone. And, you know, the metaphor of the garden is great. And it goes the same with food. You know, you're putting that food in your system for a result, and the result you're looking for isn't a fat gut and love handles. You know, it's like good burnable energy that you can use for your mind, and people don't realize it's all connected, man. You put bad fuel in your stomach, in your mouth, in the food hole there, and it goes down into your body, and then all of a sudden you have this adverse reaction. You're like, man, my stomach doesn't feel so good. Now I don't feel so good. Now my mind doesn't feel so good, and now I'm thinking these shitty thoughts, you know, and shitty food, shitty thoughts, you know, and then, you know, there on and on the chain goes, and then you go, you know, use the bathroom, and that's a shitty situation too. So, you know,
thanks for that, Jeff. Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, I'm trying to be funny in some ways, but at the same time, we've all been there, and you know it's true. And sometimes we don't take the time, right? It's all the stuff we've been talking about: the meditation, the journeying, the practices, the martial arts, whatever it is. You don't take the time to nourish yourself and to clean out the garden, and then all of a sudden all these things avalanche on you, you know.
I'm kind of marveling right now as you're talking, because I'm going back in time and I'm flipping through like different stages in my life, and I've gone through different things, and there's definitely like a common thread here, and that is when I've decided, okay, this is a practice that I want to do. I'm going to do this practice, and I'm going to do it until I see the results, and you just fucking do it. And that, the first example I'm thinking of is Taoist meditation, right? I read a book on Taoist meditation when I was going through some hard times in my life, and thought, okay, well, you know, antidepressants and pills aren't for me. Maybe I should try this. And the book said, man, in the first chapter of the book, it's like, hey, you know, you're not going to get results today. You're not going to get results tomorrow. You're not going to get results next week. But if you put in 20 minutes of this every day, before long, nobody can say exactly when, before long, something serious is going to happen. It's really going to transform your life. And I did this Taoist meditation, 20 minutes a day. I might have done it twice a day, and ultimately ended up happening like an energetic body, like awakening. Like one day it was just an ordinary day. I'd done the practice the day before and the day before that, and, you know, journaled about it, and then sat down to do the practice. And all of a sudden, all these amazing things that, you know, were mentioned in this book just clicked and turned on and happened. Completely shifted my understanding of reality. Completely changed the way that I looked at the world from then on out, you know. Same thing with like plant medicine, shamanic plant medicines, you know, like for people out there who have experienced ayahuasca, it's not an easy experience. You know, if you have experienced iboga, it's not an easy experience. It's very challenging. You know, it's never a case of you take one small dose, it tastes good, and then your life changes for goodness after that. It's never, ever, ever like that. It's always take your dose, settle into it, turn on the stoicism, let's get heroic about your life and really hone in your intent on seeing positive changes in your life and step up to the plate with a tremendous amount of courage. Keep drinking brew, take your next dose of iboga, whatever it is, whatever it needs, how far you need to go. And only then and after you've put in, taken the steps, if you, like I said, you've gone in and gotten your tools and done the gardening, then that's when you see these like amazing, life-changing, reality busting, experiences. They don't just come with ease. So nowadays when there's so much going on and things happen so fast, it's so easy for people to forget. And I think people are looking, maybe looking for what's the one thing I can do that's going to change my life? And the truth is, the one thing that you can do to change your life is apply yourself to whatever it is that you're doing to change your life. Right? There's no one practice. There's a million practices, but pick one that resonates with you and intentfully do that. Don't give up.
And your practice may evolve too. It's important to.
It's going to evolve. It's absolutely going to evolve.
It's not necessarily going to be this one. I tried to start with just straight up TM. I'm going to do transcendental meditation.
That's never worked for me.
It sounds so cool, and I'm going to do this thing, and then it ended up being shamanism, and I needed that drum. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with needing that drum. Now I can do the TM. Now I can do just a 5-minute little relaxation. Now I can do all these other breathing things that I've learned from all these different shamans and healers too, which are another type of meditation, and I can do the Wim Hof method, or whatever it is, but it all has evolved because I started, if you think it's too hard or you think you've already set yourself up for failure, and if you're worried about puking, because you're going to take ayahuasca, you need to get over it, and same with iboga and any of these things, it's part of the purge, you sit there, you get stoic, as you said, and, you all these vast different things start coming into your mind and your awareness. And a lot of those things need to get out, and they do. And it comes out of your mouth, and in the form of projectile vomiting, because you've been put in this substance that is it's causing an activation and an irritation on purpose, and that's the point of it, and it makes you get humble, it makes you get real, and it drills down to where you need to be and what you need to see, and these are all amazing things, but they're the things that you have to be ready for, that hero's journey, like you were talking. You have to be ready for the healer's journey. You're useless as a healer or as a helper if you can't help yourself and you can't heal yourself, and
listening to you talk about, projectile vomiting and this and that, I'm like, to me, that's great. I love it. To me, that's
it's reality.
No place like home than in a proper ceremony where you're really working out, like things that you need to get rid of and purge. But going back in time, there was a time when I didn't eat healthy, when I didn't take care of myself, when I was consuming news and, mindlessly consuming news and TV, whatever. And it was working all the time and playing video games, and all this, just mindless stuff. And it's a far cry from, drinking ayahuasca with proper shaman, but like walking, right? Going for a walk, right? Like that was, I remember the distinct point in my life when it was like, I'm going to go for a walk. I'm like, no, I don't know. I'm going to, that's just a big deal going for a walk. I can't decide. But then like doubling down, I'm like, okay, my body needs this. I'm going to go for a walk. It's painful, like just walking around the block, or, it's hot outside, or, like something so simple. It just depends on where you're at, where you're coming from, and, recognizing that you want to go somewhere great, but whatever step it is, the small steps, the great step, if you end up in ceremonies, that's fantastic. But walking can be extraordinarily transformative. If you do it every day, you'll find that walking is going to trigger other changes. And like you said, it'll open up. It'll help your personal practice to flower and blossom and like bud in different ways and different things.
Right, and I would say too, I had this experience with a client where they were super depressed and they weren't getting out of bed, they weren't showering, they weren't cooking for their children, and I mean, dude, I mean, we're talking like suicidal thoughts and actions even. And, I had a few sessions with the lady, and she was like, okay, I come here and I talk to you and I get all pumped up and inspired, and I think I'm going to start a yoga practice. I'm going to start this yoga practice. And I was like, whoa, 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 slow your roll. You still don't look like you've showered since the last time I saw you. So how about you start with take a shower? And for some people, man, that's where they're at, and you just start bathing yourself and shave your legs. And I said all this to her, man, shave your legs, lube yourself up with some nice lotion, wash your sheets, because if you haven't washed your body, I'm sure those are dirty. And when you get in bed tonight, see how you feel when you're all clean and you smell good and your bed is fresh, and then get up tomorrow and cook your favorite meal for your children. And this funny thing will happen when you nourish them, they'll nourish you, because they're going to turn around and say, Mommy, this is good. And that feels good, right? And so you're feeding them something good, and they're nourishing you emotionally, and then let's keep that up for a few weeks. And then if you want to start, slowly, hey, I think I'm going to try this yoga thing today, not for the next 6 months, not for the next 6 weeks, today. And then build from there, because I think so many people, man, they overshoot the goal and then they fall back and they just feel bad about themselves again and get stuck again. So, it can sound so ridiculous, but small actionable steps that you can do. You can take a shower and wash your hair.
Not everybody's up for projectile vomiting just yet.
No, exactly. You don't dive into ayahuasca and vomiting. Yeah.
But wherever it is, wherever you're at on your path, keep it up. That's the message.
Absolutely.
Keep it up. Keep going.
And anytime things get difficult, because that's what this show was all about, double down on it. It's easy to lose sight of your practice or your new routine, and then something else happens and some event occurs and then you get sucked in by the news or your life. Get, in that one moment of clarity, double back down, do it again, and you'll redesign your reality.
Boom. There you go, man. You brought it all home right there with the Redesigning Reality plug. Let's wrap it up for today. Jeff Anthony, he is the author of Cosmic Wizard, A Journey from Outer Rage to Inner Sage. I myself, Dylan Charles, I'm the editor of WakingTimes.com. And you can find us redesigningreality.com. Thanks for tuning in. Jeff, you got anything you want to say to wrap it up?
Just keep it up and work hard, and it all pays off. It really does.
Okay. Peace, everyone. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Redesigning Reality with Jeff Anthony and Dylan Charles.
Kaboya, Mokabodi, ah, 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 oh, Pakamalanda.